welcome back, incredible listeners of Third Eye Talks. I am so happy to have you back here in this space where we're going to talk about a great variety of things today on one of my favorite topics. And it came up as a result of a question I got from a listener based on a course I just did recently. It just all came together, and I thought this is divinely sent to me, and I need to talk about it. So today it's going to be all about change. And before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that we are accepting members inside of the Up Next membership community. We just had our very first meeting this past week, and it was so good. We have members already coming in, already contributing, ready for the journey. We have a full schedule of events for the year, and I'm just very excited to continue to build on this community with my spiritual besties, Jen and Kat. So if you're interested in joining a spiritual community and in having monthly classes and in really making that investment in yourself, which, by the way, the investment in the membership is $45 a month, then I want you to go to the link in the show notes. You can go to my website as well, believeitLifecoaching.com, and you'll see a picture at the very top for the Up Next membership. You can click on that and it'll give you all of the info, and you'll be able to register on there. So join us in Up Next. I'm telling you, it's going to be epic. It's going to be fire. So if you are excited for this year and to really get yourself moving in that direction with some mentors and a wonderful community, then I urge you to join us. So let's talk about today. Change is one of my favorite topics. I feel that it is part of my purpose in life to guide people through major life transitions and change. And I really do believe that so many of the circumstances and changes, really epic changes in my life, have been there because the universe wanted me to go through it in order to be able to take people through it and to explain it and to break it down and to comfort people and to show them love through the process of change and life transitions, which can be so difficult when you are traveling that road by yourself. Something that is proven in this email that I got from a listener, which, by the way, if you are listening to the podcast, you can submit any questions and they will be answered anonymously on the podcast. You can submit your questions at info@believeitLifecoaching.com, or you can connect with me on social media. My handle across the board is @BelieveItCoach, and you can DM me your question. I will not disclose your information, who you are, your name, nothing. And I will try to answer, depending on how crazy things get, as many questions as I can on the podcast. This question in particular, I felt this person through the email. I understood where this person was. I've been there. I put myself in the shoes of this person, and I thought this is a great question, first of all, and it is a great topic for the podcast. Here's the email. This is from a listener in Seattle. I'm having difficulty getting accustomed to a new life in a new city. We moved due to my husband's job, but I'm not completely adjusting to life here. I'm constantly feeling sad, especially when I talk to my family back home. I'm not sure what the lesson is here for me, and sometimes I want to place the blame on my husband, believing that it's him who manifested this situation for us. I understand that's not true, but it's difficult to ignore those feelings when you are in the situation. What can you tell me about where I am and what the spiritual lesson in this place might be? Whoa, this is a great question, and I'm so excited to answer it, okay? Very first thing I want to say is no one else can manifest for us unless it is something that is in our highest and at highest good, our best situation, okay? Even if your husband was a master manifester and wanted to manifest this change for himself for whatever reason, If the universe did not agree that this was also the proper choice and the proper direction for you, that door would have closed. Okay. And this is something that I tell my clients all of the time. Don't be afraid to knock on different doors when you're manifesting, because the universe is only going to open the doors that are meant for you. Okay. So, this is not something that your husband could have manifested for you. This is something that manifested for you. This is something that is happening for you. And there is something that you're meant to learn in this new city that you're in. There is someone you're meant to meet. There's a lesson you're meant to have. There is someone who you're supposed to cross paths with. There's something you're supposed to learn. I moved years ago, and my consistent listeners and friends know this. I moved years ago back to New York to take a job in the city, and I lived there for years. And I had this same question often. What am I supposed to do here? And I feel your pain when you say that you feel even sadder when you talk to your family back home. I feel you, and my heart goes out to you. However, I want to say this. Even though it is sad, in time, with time, you're going to learn, and you're going to be able to look back and say, ah, that was the point. That's what I was supposed to learn. If I had never moved to that place, I would have never met XYZ. I would have never learned this lesson, or it would have been harder to learn that lesson instead of how much easier it was to learn it there. I would not have crossed paths with this person who then impacted my future in such an incredible way. There is something in your new city for you. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee you that. And also, I want to recommend that you give yourself a little bit of grace. I don't know how long you have been in your new city, but I can tell you that in general, it takes a very long time to adjust to a new environment and to a new place. And some people never really do it. For instance, I lived in Jersey and worked in Manhattan for 11 years, but I always wanted to at some point come back home. And I knew that, home to Miami. I always knew I wanted that. And eventually I did come home. I did. And so at least give yourself a little bit of grace and a little bit of time to adjust to your new circumstances. In general, it takes at least 18 months to get used to a new place, at least. Okay. And this might just be how long it takes someone to move within the same state to another city. The bigger the change and the bigger the distance and the further you are from home, meaning the less you might be able to see your family and go back home every year, the longer that could take. Okay, so offer yourself a little bit of grace here. I guarantee you that you are exactly where you need to be, that this is something that manifested for your highest good, that the universe said yes to this because there's something positive waiting for you where you are right now. Okay. I hope that helps, and thank you for sending me. This is the very first question that I got on Third Eye Talks, and it was already so good, so heartfelt, and I appreciate you taking the time to reach out. Again, if you are a listener and you have a question, please send it to info@believeitLifecoaching.com, or you can DM me, and I will think through it, I will sit with it, and then I will come on here and answer it, because you never know who else is listening and going through this same situation. Okay, so I hope that helps you listeners today. And it also spurred today's topic. I, as I've said before, change is my thing. And so this person talking, writing in and talking about how they're experiencing this major change in their life just brought to me the idea, hey, let's talk about change. Let's talk about specifically the journey of change and exactly what we can experience through it. I also think this is very timely because a lot of us are at the beginning of the year and we're getting ready to create some changes in our lives. So this today's episode hopefully will help you to anticipate what happens in the wheel of change and to help you feel like you know what to expect and to be prepared for it. Okay, so change. We've done so much research. There's been so much research done about the way in which humans process change, about the way in which we acclimate to change, and about the stages of change. And you can Google and just put in the stages of change, and you will find all sorts of research and wheels and things that show you exactly what the stages of change are. And you can dive deeper after this episode. Now, though that research and those studies are so reflective of how we are always in that cycle of change, and it reflects exactly how we go through it so much that there is something that was developed called the hero's journey. And this is a tool that writers use to write their novels, write their plays, and it shows the cycle of change. It takes the hero of the story and it takes the story and follows the journey of change as we see in all of the research that has been done. And they use that tool because they know it resonates with us. We understand it, even if we haven't studied it, even if we haven't looked into it, even if we haven't dug into it, we are familiar with the process of change. It just happens on such a deep level, and we may not have a full understanding of it that we don't realize we are consistently in that wheel. Okay. So, what are some of the stages? Okay, what are some of the things that we know in change will happen continuously? Let's start with something that is called the call to adventure. That's the very first stage of change. And the call to adventure is really when something happens in your life that spurs on a massive change. And it can be something outside or it can be something that you call on yourself. You decide to move across the country, okay? Or you decide to take a brand new job, or something outside of you, something in your circumstances changes, and all of a sudden, your life is sort of flipped upside down. And I like that this is called in the hero's journey the call to adventure instead of, oh crap, my world got turned upside down. Because the reality is that yes, that initial stage of change, as much upheaval as it can cause, it really is a call to adventure. It's really the universe telling us, hey, it's time to go on this really big adventure and to really change your life. Let's do this. So again, the very first stage of change is the call to adventure, and it can be an outside circumstance that really changes things, or it can be something that we decide ourselves through maybe wanting to change our lives. We go ahead and we start that adventure. Okay. The second stage of change is something called the threshold. And in the threshold, we are neither here nor there. We're not completely in our new world. We're not completely in our old world. We're sitting in the indecision, in the unknown, sometimes tapping back into who we've always been and sometimes moving forward. So it's kind of a double dutch of sorts where we're like, oh, I'm back and forth. I don't know. I don't know. I'm still here. I'm not there anymore, but I'm also not in my future. Okay. In the threshold, I do want to say this. In the threshold, one of the great things that happens and that I find to be something really divine is the fact that mentors and helpers always arrive when you're at the threshold. And I think that happens because the universe realizes that we need that encouragement. So, for instance, my listener who wrote in and talked about these feelings that she's having about changing and moving across the country, I'm sure that at some point she's going to find someone who says, "Hey, we're here now. Let's go. Let's try to have fun. Let's go out. Let's explore the city. Let's try to do something fun." Or a mentor, somebody else who has gone through what she's going through, who can tell her, "Hey, things are going to be okay. I've been through this. Let's talk about it. Let's go through it. Let's work through it together." And who really helps her to fully sit where she's at now. So, in that second stage called the threshold, we find helpers and mentors, and they come divinely sent to sort of make us feel like we don't have to go on the journey by ourselves. Okay. Stage three in the process of change is is death and rebirth, and it is the place where we might feel completely defeated by the process of change. We Some hallmark things that you might experience in this stage are depression, sadness, lack of energy. In this stage, the biggest thing that happens to me, and from what I've experienced from my own changes and from walking my clients through their life transitions, is that we realize at this stage that we're never going to go back to the person that we were prior to the call to adventure. Okay, when we're at the call of adventure, or when we're at stage two, that threshold stage, we may still believe that things are going to go back to how they've always been, and that we're going to go back to that version of ourselves. And in stage three, that death and rebirth phase of change, we realize that that is not going to happen, that we are not ever going to return to that version of ourselves. And it can be sad because, as I've said before in the podcast, when you are becoming a whole new person, even if you didn't want to be the old you, what you come to realize is that that old version of you helped you in one way or another. And so we feel sadness letting that version of us go. Even if we were fed up with them, we also feel like they helped us, and we experience that sadness saying goodbye to them. So, stage three, death and rebirth, it can be really, really difficult realizing that you're never going to go back to who you were. And so, my advice to you, if you're in this stage of change, is to take your time and to say goodbye and to practice rituals that put to rest and that lay to rest the old version of you. Allow yourself to cry for them, for that old version of you. Allow yourself to let go of all that was. Allow yourself to be in that moment. And the promise, the beautiful thing about this is the promise of stage four and stage five. Okay. The thing that can kind of get us through this stage of change is knowing that stages four and five are a part of the natural cycle, and they're a part that is coming up. Okay. So, what is stage four? Stage four is in the hero's journey. It's called atonement, but I like to call it adaptation. Okay. It's when you begin to kind of say, all right, I'm going to go ahead and put my feet in the water. I realize that I'm not going back to who I've always been. Let me see what comes next for me. Let me see how I can survive in this new environment. Not only how I can survive, but maybe how I can find some happiness in this new environment. It's really a stage where we begin to start to say yes to a lot more of what is happening in the journey. And here, one of the beautiful things is that you might find that you finally feel like, huh, maybe I can do this. I know that I've been sad. I know that I've felt a certain way about everything that was happening, but you know what? There's hope here. There's something that can happen here for me. I'm powerful, and I think that I can make something out of what I've just gone through. And I think that I can become really empowered in this place. Let me try. Let me see. Let me explore. Let me experiment. Okay. So, this is that stage of change. Then finally, we have what's called the return, or in other models of change, it's called maintenance. Okay. And this is the phase in the movie, in the play, in the book, where the hero returns to their old world, but now they've returned as a badass. Now they've returned knowing that they had so much power that they were able to survive and thrive in the process of change. And they, even if they return to their old environment, they return heroically to that environment. Okay. This is called maintenance, but in reality, it's where you realize your power. It's a return to your personal power. It's being fully integrated into the new place where you didn't know you were going to when the call to adventure came, but you made it. You made it. And now you're like, ah, I kind of like it here. This is nice. This is nice. I could stay here. I could be here. I feel comfortable here. I feel empowered here. I feel heroic here. I'm not the same me. And you know what? I don't want to be. I'm happy that all of this happened because I ended up here in this new version of myself, and I love this person. Okay? This is the return maintenance of the change wheel. Now, let me say this because people sometimes think that change only involves that they're only going through change when they are in the call to adventure, the threshold, and death and rebirth, especially death and rebirth. People always think that that's the only time when changes are happening in their lives. And that is not true. We are always in the wheel of change. We're just in different phases of it. And so when you're in the return and maintenance stage, this final stage of change, you may think to yourself, ah, finally, the changes are over. And now I just get to be happy here and I don't have to worry about changes. Oh, I hate change. I hate when change comes on. And I'm just ready to be in this new place. Listen, you are still on the wheel of change. You're just in the final stage, which is the return and maintenance. And yes, it's empowering. It feels heroic. You feel peace, but you can trust that the call to adventure is going to come back. And either you're going to call for adventure or the universe is going to say, hey, this is all nice and dandy, but we have bigger, better plans for you. And so, ring, ring, here's the call to adventure. So, don't ever believe that change only involves when things are going bad. Change is also happening when things are going good. And you're going to be back in that wheel. And the beautiful thing about the wheel, it's a wheel, it's a circle. You're going to get through it. You're going to get through whatever it is. You're going to be happy. And our lives are consistently a call to adventure. We're constantly growing. It's what we decided to do on this earth. It is how we embrace love. It is how we become the greatest versions of ourselves and become everything that we were destined to be. It's through the cycles of change and through understanding that change is beautiful. So, I hope you have enjoyed this episode. If you are going through a life transition, if you are going through a change and you want somebody to help you through that change, I offer one-on-one coaching and I would be so happy to welcome you. If you have questions about my one-on-one coaching, you can reach out to me. The email is the same, info@believitlifecoaching.com. Again, remember to join us in the Up Next membership and to write to me. I love questions. I love answering them. So if there is something that you're going through on your journey, whether it's about change or anything else having to do with spirituality, it can be astrology, numerology, um, death, grief, whatever it is, reach out to me. I'm ready to answer your questions and to hopefully bring some peace to whatever you are going through. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time on Third Eye Talks. Bye-bye.